you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker, what do you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Clark from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, we're going to talk it up here, Boilermaker fans, a little bit with you. I know Alan Carpick's going to join us coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Chris Kramer, I was trying to get him on. I don't know about his availability today. Had a video regarding what he feels needs to be done. And this is more of a player angle, certainly, with a Boilermaker team that's now lost 3 straight and heading down to IU coming up on Sunday. And believe me, I know the situation for IU just like everybody else does. And I know things can crumble in a moment. They can look good for a couple of seconds and then for 5 minutes look terrible. However, they do have a group. And the one thing you can't deny about IU is they have a higher level of individual talent. They have, whether he's actually playing hard or sometimes kind of half-assing it down the floor at his own leisurely pace. In Umar Ballo, they have a big dude that can be a difference maker. They have a big dude that can be problematic. And the one thing, and I mentioned this yesterday to Bobby Riddell when he was on the show, and he agreed with me on it, the biggest thing that you watch with this basketball team here in the month of February, and we were all excited about January. They were playing great, and now you're into February, and the one thing that stands out, and this has been standing out the entirety of the time, win or lose, and especially lose, but it is the absolute lack of fear that anybody on the opposing team has at going to the rim. Now, I mentioned that with Wisconsin. You go back to the Wisconsin game, and in the second half, they were constantly getting into the paint, constantly not going above the rim, but below the rim. And let's face it, Boilermaker fans, you've never had to worry about that, or at least not for a long time. You've had to worry about it. But in the past couple of years, that was never a worry. I always bring that up because I make a slight comparison to Miles Turner. For the world of jackasses out there, which is still very few now because common sense is prevailing. When people say, hey, he's only got 1 block, clearly he's not a good defensive player any longer, and you could not be more inaccurate, you knuckleheads. It is his mere presence. He will detour somebody in their level of confidence, in their belief that they can get where they're going, to the glass, to the rim. I also mentioned this with the Pacers. When was the last time in an NBA game that we have witnessed with the Pacers? Yeah, go back to that Washington game right before the All-Star break. How many finishes did the Wizards have below the rim? It was startling. That's all because of the rim-protecting presence. The rim protector may not get every block. But what the rim protector does is he will shuffle dudes out of the lane. They will enter, they will go through the front door and then exit via the back door because of that presence. And that's one thing that I think at least a very small percentage of idiots haven't understood regarding Miles. And I don't know if you do now, or you probably still don't because of Legos and whatever else, because you're just not very bright in general. And I'm not talking, I know I'm not, like the 97, 98% of the people I'm talking to get it, understand it, and you are bright, but there's a very small percentage that simply put walks around with their head up their ass and would have no idea. But you can't see it with the Pacers, and you can't see it. It has been more prevalent, especially in the last 3 with Purdue. Teams have zero fear. And every bit as good as Trey Kaufman-Renn has been this season, and he has playing in the low post defensively, he is not that type of threat. And I don't know what Jacobson would have added, but he at least could stand there with his arms up, if for nothing else, and his mere presence could be a capability. And that's a I don't know, like you would think that Berg would have a similar capability, but he doesn't. Yeah, Todd Meyer and I were talking about before the show, noted Purdue Boilermaker fan here, that Berg goes out and tries to hedge, off dribble drives, and really you should just stay in the paint and put your arms up. And that's what's necessary. It was an absolute dunk show last night. That car put on a dunk show for Sparty. And the reason why I bring that up is the Boilermakers have now lost 3 straight. And before you go saying, well, here's the mismatch again, IU played them very well at Mackey. And this is a dangerous territory for the Boilermakers coming up on Sunday. Regardless of what is going on, regardless of what you think about the leadership or lack thereof, or the coaching ability or the lack thereof of IU. What they have individual talent, which more times than not does not play together. But individual talent is something that the Boilers have struggled with this season. And we go back to A&M, we go back to Auburn in the month of December, but you have seen that again, and I think it should be clear that the one thing that stands out, and you knew that there were going to be a lot of avenues that you had to overcome. Face it, your expectations were not as high as they have been. However, Purdue basketball is viewed in a different light now. So the expectations are still going to be there. And the expectations are that a Purdue basketball team does not lose 3 straight. I believe that's the first time since the COVID season that has taken place. Nobody's going to be happy about that. And I don't know if you got panic, but you do have people saying, hey, all right, something has to happen here. You have to get right. It's easy to say that, Braden Smith has to do this and do that. My man is the most iron of iron dudes, because he is 40 minutes. He's 39 last night. Basically 40 minutes a game. Now, you knew going into the season that's exactly what you're going to get. You are going to get nearly 40 from Smith, and you are going to get at least 30 plus, if not 35, for Kaufman-Renn and Lawyer. Sometimes you wonder if Braden wouldn't benefit. And he's going to say, yeah, you're stupid. Why are you even bringing that up? But wouldn't benefit for a little bit more of a blow if that opportunity was there. But last night, you could just tell, you saw Sparty late in that game. It was after Kaufman-Renn got his second foul. They go on a 13-3 run. And to me at that moment, I felt this is going to be really difficult for the Boilermakers to reestablish. And in fact, they didn't. And let's just face it, they were chasing it the entirety of the night right there. You look at Sparty, nothing really stands out other than what? Other than their athleticism. I mean, that three-point shooting, they still can't shoot it a lick. They haven't been able to all season. You saw what IU did implementing a zone, for goodness sake, week before last to get that win. Now, Michigan State still shot it. 58%, but a lot of that was in and around the rim. And there is no longer somebody to protect that particular area right now, and that is problematic. And IU is going to bring a similar – if IU individually shows up I think collectively they can give the Boilermakers all certainly they can handle. And really all you have to do is go back to that last game at Mackey. So I guess for everybody, this is going to be a very competitive game. It's funny. For IU, it's like IU fans look at it, okay, you got an outgoing coach, that's good, so why not go out there and win and see what can happen? We know that there's going to be a change. The other funny thing about IU fans, I'm compelled to suggest that there are a lot of IU fans that believe this whole coaching search and hire is going to be underwhelming. Am I wrong about that? Now, I try to glean my information from hardcore IU fans. And I'm not gauging everybody out there, don't get me wrong. I'm just suggesting those that I talk to feel as if it is going to be underwhelming. Now, this could be in the form of a couple of different ways. One is, I think everybody has this bright, shining star of Brad Stevens. And Brad Stevens this and Brad Stevens that. And if not Brad Stevens, then what else? And when people bring up Dusty, the first thing I bring up is the fact that Dusty is in year one at Michigan with every single resource. And when you suggest, well, he would like to come home and play to where he went to school and in and around where he grew up, but that really didn't compel him to make that choice with Louisville. I mean, hell, where we grew up's not that far from Louisville. And certainly it's a lot closer than Michigan. But Michigan has resources, significant resources. And you can see what he has done in year number one to put together those resources, and something that Juwan Howard had clearly lost last year. So when somebody brings that up to me, and they bring that up to me all the time because we go to high school, same high school together, whatever, and I talk to him, they ask me about that, and I go, listen, I don't know, but it would be surprising because it seems like he has everything that you would want right now. The only common denominator that is not met for him, to me, is the fact that it's not where he grew up. But it has everything and then some. And how many people would argue right now that being the head coach in Michigan, hey, you're fine staying there because IU still has a lot to sort out? Meaning, in history, and especially people around here are going to say that IU gig is one of the better gigs in college basketball, and it's a hell of a lot better than Michigan. But is it right now? Is it right now? So when you ask about Dusty, the first thing I wonder is, why would he really want to leave after 1 year, and especially in a year in which he's having such a high level of significant success? That's what I wonder. Now, this part about the IU coaching search and whether or not it's going to be underwhelming or meet your standards or you're going to be happy with it or not, this is just, frankly, my opinion. And my opinion, most of the time, I'm assuming that most of you would say, yeah, probably not worth a nickel. I respect that. I don't know why it is, but for some reason with this gig, I am attracted to basketball dudes. How can I put this, James? That are also a little bat-S. Seriously, basketball dudes that are a little bat-S. And when I think of basketball guys that are a little bat-S, I don't look at Dusty. You sure as hell don't look at Brad Stevens. When I look at guys like that, that's why I brought up Chris Beard, and I know his past is obviously going to eliminate him. But that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Well, Pat Kelsey in Louisville seems like he's got a nice combination of basketball knowledge, motivation, and badass. And a guy that coached last night, and I don't know whether to love this or go, okay, I don't really get it. So Illinois loses on the road at Wisconsin last night, right, significantly. And then at the end of the game, you saw Brad Underwood approach Greg Gard and say, hey, let's not shake hands. And after the game, in the meeting of the media, Underwood said it was because that he's got the flu running rampant, or sickness or illness running rampant through his locker room, and he didn't want these guys to shake hands and pass it along. Now, they just played 40 minutes of basketball in pretty close quarters. So I'm assuming if you're going to pass along the flu, you could probably pass along the flu. Like if you gave somebody an N1, it was an N1 and the potential of coming down with influenza, right? N1 and the flu. So I just think Brad Underwood is, I think he's a knowledgeable basketball guy, but I think he's also a little bat-S. I could be wrong about it. That's just what I am attracted to for this gig. They've been down the path of nice guys, of affable guys, former Hoosier guys. And let's face it, the one guy that probably was the best coach, now, Kelvin Sampson's a little badass. I mean, really, that was kind of the last time, right? I think we'd all, no matter what you think about his impact on the program at that point in time, that he's a pretty damn good coach. I could be wrong about it, and I'm oftentimes wrong. That's just what I am looking for, I would guess, in that particular gig. I just don't know if that is available. I don't know about the Alice Cooper song, No More Mr. Nice Guy. No more Mr. Nice Guy. I just think you need to have a combination there. Somebody that knows, somebody that has a shut-off valve, too. And it has nothing to do with the history in Bob Knight. I just think you have to deal with all of it there. I just think it is a little bit different. I don't know what Brad Underwood's buyout is. People tell me he likes a little bit of cash, so they're going to float a little bit of cash around. And the other part about it is everybody would suggest he's having a down season. Now, they changed up absolutely everybody. And it wasn't his fault that Terrence Shannon Jr.'s jersey banner was upside down. You guys see that over the weekend, too. We're going to put his jersey number up in the rafters, and they hang the banner upside down. But he seems like that he has a nice combination. Mick Cronin has a combination. Is there any question about it? If you like Mick Cronin, you got to like Brad Underwood. If you like Brad Underwood, you got to like Pat Kelsey. I'm sure everybody really, as a coach for the situation, you like Chris Beard, but you just know the circumstances, and he's not going to get sniffed. Is that kind of the combination anybody's looking for? Anybody besides me? You can share that at 239-1070, and we can talk that up over the course of the afternoon. Pacers back at it coming up tomorrow. They get Memphis. This is a 4-game homestand, but there is a high level of difficulty here. And I don't want to hear any more excuses. I am sick of it. And I think I've handed a couple out myself. I am sick of myself. I sound like Matthew Sweet. Are you getting a list of re-entry songs because I'm like hitting Alice Cooper, Matthew Sweet? I'm sick of myself when I look at you. No?
I was actually making a rejoinder of you saying you love basketball dudes, or you're attracted to basketball dudes.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's good. The flow of the show. Way to have the flow of the show go, James. I am. Maybe we're thinking about a different level of attraction, right? Like when Jake was in here earlier, when I was 12 years old and the sensuous nurse was on Skinamax, I was attracted to that, but not in the same capacity as I would be with the coaching ability of Brad Underwood. Not fair?
Not the NC-17 attractive?
Yeah. What was the first NC-17 movie? Do we know? I think all of those videos that were straight to video Faces of Death. Was it the Temptation of Christ, The Last Temptation? Was one of them?
It says it was the first the first movie to open in theaters with an NC-17 rating was Henry and June, starring Uma Thurman, Fred Ward, and
Well, wait a minute.
someone else.
Henry and June with Uma. Yeah.
Uma Thurman back in the day.
Uma Thurman today.
Actually, that's fair. Yeah.
Uma. I had an incredible crush on Uma. Have you seen a lot of Uma stuff?
I've seen Kill Bill. I've seen
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction, the terrible Batman movie she was in. And that's the three that I can really think
You ever
of.
seen Johnny Be Good with Anthony Michael Hall and Robert Downey Jr. when it's so incredibly far-fetched? Now, it's funny. Now, it's kind of like today and what it was in recruiting, but nobody is going to throw that much money and all that strange and all that time and effort into a quarterback that's Anthony Michael Hall. Johnny Be Good. She was in that. Good reference on Henry and June was the first one. What year was that? 88?
Let me get back to it. October 5th, 1990.
Henry and June. Well done, James. We got that working. That came from a Jake Query conversation during the crossover right there, so we don't necessarily have to get into that. But, that is territory that is not virgin to me. So you certainly understand that. Hey, tomorrow's show is live. I know I got to finish my thought on the Pacers in a second, and I will. Eddie Gill is going to join us top of the 4 o'clock hour. I mentioned no excuses. Allison Chains, no excuses. None. All right, you got significant rest. Everybody should be good to go. No more 0 disappearances. And I saw the video from Netflix regarding Joel Embiid. Can you imagine anybody around here wanting his big ass as a part of this? Come on now. Come on. He's played 17 games this season. If you missed what I was talking about, there's a reference in whatever the Netflix show is that has Tyrese Halliburton in it when they were over in Paris, where Tyrese Halliburton had mentioned, why don't you come to Indy? And then Embiid countered with, I would retire before I go to Indy. And some would suggest that your big ass is already retired. And Philly, you got to be incredibly gratified that you got that group in Philadelphia right now, because that is high-level performance. But, yeah, that would be my nightmare right there. I mean, you got the Kansas influence. Like, I have not a care in the world about BYU, but handing Kansas a beatdown like that last night is pretty hilarious. I love that. Otherwise, I don't care. But, yeah. I don't know if I'm Joel Embiid. You don't really read the room and really understand what people think about you when you reference, yeah, I wouldn't go there. I would rather retire. Yeah, you're enjoyable as hell to watch. Plus, you're dirty, too, man. You get on the ground and kick people in the sack. Nobody likes you. We'll go over that a little bit later on. But, yes, back to the no excuses coming up after the All-Star break tomorrow night, starting versus Memphis. I shall explain. Eddie Gill, top of the hour. Alan Carpick still to come, too. We'll talk a little more Boilermaker stuff. We've got Dave Matthews Band tickets. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. Me, Doug Bowles, and all of you at Tom's Watch Bar downtown. Now, we're going to announce and I believe talk to one of the artists involved in Carb Day 2025. Doug Bowles, me, tomorrow, Tom's Watch Bar. Would love to see you all down there. Let us take a break, and we shall return. Boilermaker fans, you fans, I gave you a little something there. You can go ahead and respond. 239-1070, the stream, the app, the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live coming up on Saturday. That is the AAA Travel Expo at the Ritz-Charles in Carmel. Do not miss it. And remember, when you're there, find Matt Godbout and say, hey, dude, I'm trying to move that right there. Can you tell? Screwed it up. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Say, hey, we got to get a JMV show going on a vacation all together here. I know it'd be like 95% dudes, big Boy Scout meeting on vacation right there. Be like a pike party at Indiana State in 1992.
You don't like a Sausage Fest vacation?
Big Sausage Fest pike party. Hey, come over and DJ our party. All right. Wait a minute. You guys all dudes here. What kind of party's this? This is not my Terre Haute, guys. I mentioned that to Matt Godbout. AAA Travel Expo Saturday. Rich Charles in Carmel. Grab some friends, go, thank me later. Find that dream vacation there. That's the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
I don't know why it is. I am attracted to basketball dudes.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Yeah, some quick turnaround right there in the old promo department. Yeah, Pacers, this one's for you right here. I don't want to hear after the All-Star break anything. The Great Lane Staley right here will belt out the magical, the fantastic sounds of no excuses. None. None. You are a team that is built in the now for the future, and you should be playing within the realm of the top four and go nowhere else in the Eastern Conference. Hey, this doesn't mean you're going to go. I'm not suggesting that they have to go to the Eastern Conference Finals because we know it's going to be a hell of a lot tougher, at least the way that it looks right now, to get to where they go last year. But in terms of playing at a level, there should be allowed no backpedaling, and I'm not going to sit here and allow it. It is not going to happen. Hey, inside the AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live, this is what happens, James. Scott Blackford says Miles is a lazy bum, and I said Scott Blackford is a dumbass. That's how it goes. Now, will that get taken out? Will somebody take that out?
Out of the YouTube chat?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I got it. It's on Facebook.
Oh, it's a Facebook?
Yeah, it's a Facebook.
I mean,
his name is Scott Blackford, and he wouldn't know his ass for nothing.
Eloquent as always.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Scott Blackford, everybody. Lazy bum. I will say this. Scott Blackford may have an opportunity to really gauge that better than anybody else because I'm assuming when he looks in the mirror, he may see something just like that. Is that what you see, Scott?
It is a takes one to know one kind of deal.
It is, man. See, that's what happens, Scott. You can have a differing opinion, but you can't be insulting. I'm the only one. No, I'm just joking. You can be if you want. I don't care. Because I do like the counter. I don't think there's any question about that. JMV, what's the word on Woodson not doing his weekly radio gig? He had an assistant step in. He has said, you know what? If you guys are going to force me in retirement, then the hell with you. I'm not yapping to anybody. And that includes the legendary Don Fisher. I guess that's the only thing I can assume. And I've said this before, and everybody gets all offended. You know, those that are especially deeply rooted in the media, they get offended. I don't care because, frankly, he's really got nothing I care to hear. I don't know what compelling thing he's going to say where I go, hold on a minute. Hold on just a minute. I got to catch what he's saying right here. What's he saying about this? So, to me, that's okay. I completely understand. Because I don't even know if I, hard targeted wanting to hear it in the first place when it was available. So the lack of availability is not anything I've thought twice about. Most, again, deeply rooted journalistic integrity people out there, that sounded good. There's your Greene County education right there. Most of those folks seem really offended by it, but that's not me. I don't care. It was something I wanted to hear. Oh, yeah. I'm going to hang on a word here, but I didn't need to hear any more about the hump and, what I'm not doing to get these guys. First of all, so many times he had mentioned in basically in any interview what he hasn't done to get over the hump or to get these guys to where they need to be. Then it should have been a foregone conclusion that if that's how you feel about yourself and that's where you are, how do you think your bosses feel about you? If you haven't lived up to the expectations, or let's just say it in terms of those expectations, even scratch the surface, how do you think those that are the decision makers, those that hired you, What do you think they're thinking about it? So if that's what you have suggested about yourself, then you shouldn't be bent out of shape that your bosses go, yeah, you know what, we need to find somebody else because this is simply not working. And you said so yourself. You said you didn't have an answer as to why it doesn't work. We've got to find somebody that has some answers. So it really didn't bug me. Others will disagree. This is from Corey, JMV. Pepsi of Indianapolis Post Road is putting on, get this, a 3-on-3 tournament. This is on March the 29th. It will be, is it outside or inside? That seems like if it's outside. Every time I think of a 3-on-3 tournament, I believe it to be outside. 329, it probably has to be inside, right? There's too much a roll of the dice for that. To benefit the local Boys and Girls Club. Would love any donation or hook up with the... See, I thought you were going to ask me to play. And I'm glad you're asking me for hookups and donations from us and the Pacers and prizes. But the first thing you needed to do, Corey, is say, I really wanted you to play on my team. That's how you get me. I want you to play on my team, and then you go into that. Completely agree with that. But no, I like it. It's funny. I just had been sent something. I didn't even know they still had them. I just got sent a Gus Macker schedule. And I think Gus Macker, was it created in the state of Michigan? Because it looks like there are, in the summertime, a number of Michigan locations where they are still holding 3-on-3. What's interesting to me is back in the 90s, when we all played Gus Macker, it got a little bit out of hand then. I can't imagine how it is now. And I know this is kind of the old fart in me coming out here, but can you imagine dealing with, the a-holes now? Because you had to deal with it back then, and it wasn't nearly as bad back then. Now, sometimes you just had to give up a point, or you were forced to forfeit the toilet bowl. True story. Skivvy says, indeed, Belding, Michigan, Gus Macker. Belding, Michigan. That was a rite of passage in the 1990s. And in Bloomington, it always came the weekend prior to Little Five. And you always knew this. If the Gus Macker weekend was great weather, Little Five weekend was going to be compromised. If Gus Macker had crappy weather for that weekend, then Little Five was going to have great weather. It happened that way nearly to me every year of the 1990s. Man, it was glorious, though. It was a hell of a good time. But no, seriously, get back to that for a second. Corey, that's how you present that to me. Say, yeah, I really want you to play on my squad. And then, by the way, a shout out to IMS, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Looking for a good time? JMV and IMS got you covered. That's tomorrow. Tom's Watch Bar downtown. Live show. We're going to discuss this year's lineup live. I believe have a participant in the lineup live, too. True story. So that is me coming up tomorrow. Me and Doug Bowles and a lot of you at Tom's Watch Bar coming up tomorrow. Yeah, cannot wait for that. All right, Boilermaker thoughts. Got into that at the outset of the show. I don't really know what to say about Butler. I know that in the transfer portal and the era of NIL that you can turn it around. But it seems like that if there's a team around here that needs some sort of compass right now, that would be it. It makes you wonder during this particular era how competitive, especially if you want to add in that level of consistency that Butler is going to be. But, yeah, it was kind of a tough watch at times again last night if you tuned into that versus Xavier. It has just been an incredibly forgettable season for the Butler Bulldogs. And really nothing else to say about it. Just incredibly forgettable. 76-63 was the final last night. It just doesn't seem like there's anybody. You brought some guys back, and, you kind of cross your finger. Not everybody, but some guys back, some main guys back, and you kind of hope for a level of cohesion that just has never occurred. Some significant backpedaling for real. We got that. College basketball-wise, I mentioned the Pacers restart coming up tomorrow, the first of 4 straight at home, and it is a tough schedule when you think about it. Because you're going to have on Thursday Memphis in here, and over the course of the next 3, the Clippers, the Nuggets, and the Raptors would be the outlier in those good teams right there. But you're going to have to buckle things up and go at it. Expectations are there, and I'm not going to drop any of these expectations, and it does start with 0. And as I mentioned before, and there's a promo that airs on this show, and it's nothing against Tyrese Halliburton at all other than I don't want to see him so easily taken away, so easily offensively, scoring-wise, eliminated. And that has become not consistently familiar, but certainly noticeably familiar. And for them to really raise the level that we expect, I mean, you got to have, it may not be to the level we saw, for example, a year ago in November. I'm talking about last year in November, or before that injury, or in the whole Vegas play-in tournament in-season thing, number one, whatever. It may not be at that level, but it needs to be approaching that again because that's your max-out guy. That's the expectation there. And I know that he's got a lot on his shoulders, but all these dudes have a lot on their shoulders. Not taking any excuses. Quick break. We shall return. Eddie Gill about that and then some coming up at the top of the hour. The former NBA guard from Pacers Radio, Pacers TV, Alan Carpick talks some Boilermaker conversation with us coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Dave tickets for you. You've got 2 shows coming up this summer, per usual, at Ruoff Home Mortgage Music Center. And we'll give somebody some Dave tickets. Tomorrow's show's on the road at Tom's Watch Bar. Further explanation and anything else you would like to add at 239-1070 coming up on the other side. The AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. And I cannot wait to see you tomorrow. Shout out to Brian Kelly. I saw this. Doug Bowles is my president. That's one of their latest T-shirts right there. That's outstanding work. We'll see Doug tomorrow. He joins us at Tom's Watch Bar. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy. Now go away.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, no excuses. Last time we go back into losers. This more toward me. More appropriate re-entries from James. I did want to give a shout because yesterday Greg and I were talking about this. You have the girls' semi-states. Of course, you've got the boys' sectional draw coming with Greg and Bob Level on Sunday. But the semi-state action, I did go a year ago, and I do remember that there was snow and it was cold a year ago. I think I attended, it was LC and Plainfield and CG and somebody else. I can't remember who it was. But I went a year ago to that at Southport Fieldhouse. So here's what I want to happen here. First of all, so we've got a semi-state coming up at Southport Fieldhouse. And this has been problematic in the past because what happens when you get winners, they cut down the nets, right? And so we come in on Sunday morning, and then the whole Sunday morning crew gets called off. Brendan Dudas, the baseball coach at Southport, so kindly opens up the doors. But then I get a text as I'm on the way saying, hey, we got to call it off because there are no nets. And I said, well, I can stop and get some nets. Well, there are no ladders to put up the net. So we need nets and ladders on standby to make sure that I get normal Sunday morning hoops in. All right? This is Wednesday, midweek Wednesday, a reminder from my good friends at Southport.
They don't have any ladders there?
That's like, I think they were worried. Somebody was worried, which is pretty funny, about somebody being injured, and I'm thinking, wait, you've got
so they do have
dudes
ladders
out here playing.
They just don't want you to use the ladders.
I'm assuming, but it doesn't matter. We can find other means. Let's just please, nets and ladders standing by.
Just stack a couple of y'all on each other's shoulders, and there you go.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
That's happened before. I don't want this to happen this time. I love the fact that they use Southport High School in the fashion in which they do, because there is rarely a better gymnasium anywhere in the state of Indiana, really anywhere than Southport Fieldhouse. I love it. The softest floors ever. And believe me, if you're old like me, you appreciate a soft floor. And here, Southport Fieldhouse, you play there, or if we're relegated, unfortunately sometimes, to the auxiliary gym, it's like playing outside on the street. So no auxiliary gym. But there is such a difference. It is like walking on a cloud. So Southport, please, ladders and nets standing by for Sunday. I will go over a lot of the local teams involved because I need to give them a lot of love. And especially where Blake went to high school, Ron Colley. Ron Colley in the New Albany semi-state coming up this weekend. I am a tremendous fan of Jason Sims, their head coach. I mean, really, they got it going with Lauk and Sims. I mean, it's just a great place for one. Great place academically, great place athletically. But a shout-out to Jason Sims. I am a tremendous fan, and they have had a great season to get to where they are. They get Cathedral and Ron Colley in New Albany coming up on Saturday. And I know a lot of those girls and their parents, so congratulations certainly to Ron Colley and the Royals and Coach Sims for what they accomplished. Quick break, we'll come back. I'll get to everybody else, too. I got to give a lot more love. Cathedral, obviously, Hamilton Southeastern, Lawrence North involved in the semi-state, Greensburg, other schools we'll give some love to coming up a little bit later on in the show. Alan Carpick talks Boilermaker hoops. That's after 5. Eddie Gill, the former NBA guard, Pacers radio and TV. He's with us next.
The Ride with JMV.
I am the cream, yeah. The cream of the crop. And there is no one that does it better.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Time to watch bar tomorrow. Speedway Prez, IndyCar Prez. Doug Bowles going to be there live. We'll talk to the Carb Day Entertainment. So everybody join us there. If you're going down to the Pacer game, Pacers resume after the All-Star break. Memphis in town. It's a 4-game homestand, but it is a difficult 4-game homestand, starting with the Grizz. Coming up tomorrow night, you can hear it right here. You can watch it, of course, on Pacers TV. You can join us at Tom's Watch Bar before the game and hang out with Doug Bowles and me and drink during the show, which is always a big deal. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, the former NBA guard from Pacers TV, Pacers Radio, Eddie Gill joins us now. Hello, Eddie. How are you?
Good. How you doing, man? Thanks for having me.
You got it. What did we do over the All-Star break?
I was out in San Francisco actually for the All-Star weekend, which is always nice. I always enjoy that. NBA does a nice job there. Did some stuff with the Retired Players Association. So overall, good weekend.
All right. So give me a story. Is there one story that stands out that is shareable for the audience?
Yeah, there's one. I think, and this is a nice, wholesome one, but Antonio Davis is the new CEO of the NBRPA, the National Basketball Retired Players Association. So I'm a board member with the association, and we just hired him as the new CEO. So that's pretty cool news.
There are few dudes in the world that are cooler than AD. Seriously.
Yes, sir.
He is
no question.
An absolute. You know what's interesting? He's been at gym he's been awesome his entire life. Back when he was a player. I don't know if I've ever been as torn up in the history of being a Pacer fan as when they traded him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's rock solid. I mean, and obviously that team was great, and what he and Dale Davis did alongside each other, along with Rick Smith, that team was good, and they were a problem for many people, but yeah, AD is top notch. He's as solid as they come.
It's funny. The 90s synonymous with such high level of basketball, and the Pacers were a significant part of that landscape too. It was great.
Yeah, I mean that team, and I mean Reggie, his career speaks for itself, obviously, but they had the great combination. I mean, you talk about a team that just fit. That was a team that had a great fit, and Antonio Davis was one of the guys who was able to man the paint for him.
Awesome. I'm glad for AD. He is a tremendous dude, no doubt about that. Eddie Gill joins us. Well, we're glad you're back. I've dubbed this after the All-Star break a no excuses category. And listen, I know that they can fall short of what they did a year ago, going to the Eastern Conference Finals. Much easier than it was last year because obviously they did have to deal with injured teams, and the teams above them right now are stacked up. There is no doubt. But there are just certain categories that I want to see them reach their goals in growth and overcome. And I want to start with Tyrese Halliburton. I don't want to so easily see him taking out of his offensive flow, which it's not consistent, but it has been certainly noticeable this season. I want to see him overcome that. Am I being too harsh in that category? And I know he still is able to share it, but in terms of so easily being taken away by double teams or, by taller defenders, taking away his offense, I want to see him be able to overcome that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a fairness to that critique. He is definitely by nature a guy who's able to share the basketball. He does a tremendous job of getting his teammates the ball and that kind of thing. But there's a certain responsibility and expectation that he's been able to assume based on the play that we've seen. And he's been a guy who's been able to dominate certain games, not only just with his playmaking, but also with his scoring. And it's less about, for me, about tangible putting the ball in the basket. It's more about always remaining a threat out there on the floor to potentially score. and sometimes he defers a little bit earlier than he potentially could. Again, and maybe that's just by his nature of being a willing and great passer, but the assessment of about him just always being a threat and being aggressive and making sure that teams respect him, I certainly agree with that. And he's a two-time All-Star, and some teams are treating him like that, so he gets extra attention. But it's a battle of wills, and he's got to be able to overcome that and still be and be that threat. So that's something that, again, I think he'll continue to work on, continue to work through, because he's going to garner those long, athletic, strong wings, and oftentimes he comes off of screens. He's going to see double teams, so that's just part of being an all-star.
You mentioned deferring, and to me, there's a big difference between making the right play in deferring and not having confidence in your shot or your shot-making ability in deferring. And I think that the latter has something to do with what we have seen prior to the All-Star break.
Simply he just, like I said, it's the battle of wills, and he's just got to continue to be, be in an alpha mindset and attack that pressure with pressure, along with, to your point about making the right play. You got 2 or 3 people draped all over you because you were aggressive and you were a threat, and now they've recognized it, so now they're throwing extra bodies at you. Okay, I certainly get it, making the right play there. So that's something I'm confident that he'll be able to continue to do.
So Eddie Gill's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Memphis starts a 4-game homestand at Cambridge Fieldhouse coming up tomorrow night. You can both hear him and see him on Pacers TV and radio. And, of course, hear him right here on The Fan coming up tomorrow night. I'm curious regarding both Neesmith and Matherin. Minutes, starter versus coming off the bench. What's your belief right now? And again, this could be an ever-evolving situation with Rick Carlisle decision-making, but how do you think that should be handled in the present?
Yeah, I think it could be a carousel, and Rick Carlisle even mentioned that when Neesmith first came back. He said it's going to be something that's going to be evaluated and assessed almost on a nightly basis, probably dependent upon opponent, dependent upon the groove that one of those guys may have. Benedict Matherin, started the season off, playing really well. Obviously in that starting role, he's had a nice run, and then they've gone to Neesmith back in the starting lineup. Now Matherin has been good coming off the bench. Looks like his rookie season where he was really effective there. I think again it'll continue to evolve, and it could be a game by game situation. But I think they've done a good job of setting an expectation and that it will be evolving. It's something that they'll assess from a game-to-game situation. But I think either guy, regardless of who starts on any given game, one of those 2 guys could potentially also end the game, just depending on how the flow of the game is going.
I think we saw some guys certainly on fumes, some guys that was necessary to get a significant nap, and I was really glad, selfishly, I was glad that they had one All-Star, one rep out there along with you and Pascal Siakam. One of those players, and you don't normally categorize him as somebody that might be running on fumes a bit, but T.J. McConnell getting to the basket, his normal self, and then finishing with that less than mid-range jumper that seemed to be when he was missing it short. He looked like he was among those that really needed that gasser, that break.
That could be, and then also I think there's an argument that just not your night on a couple of nights where it's just not going. But 'cause we get enamored and take for granted sometimes his ability to do that all the time. So when it doesn't happen, we may look to poke some holes in it. But certainly, it's a long season, and you talk about a guy who thrives on energy and being able to push the pace literally every single time he's on the floor, and what he does defensively in terms of being scrappy and disruptive as a defender, picking up 94 feet. Yeah, all that definitely can wear on you. So taking a breather, being able to decompress both mentally and physically be helpful for everybody, including TJ.
Here's Eddie Gill on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Memphis in town coming up tomorrow night. You can hear it right here on The Fan, and you can hear Eddie Gill right here on The Fan coming up tomorrow night as well. It was interesting to me, and I just took a straw poll with myself when Miles was out, and I don't know if this was noticeable to you, and maybe I was just making it up. But I don't know if I had seen so many attempts and makes below the rim with opposing players with no Miles out there than I have seen with the Pacers in a long time, meaning that not only was there no rim protection, but they were like free and clear to finish in layups like I would at the Y or something like that. Like so much below the rim, it was almost shocking at times to see.
Yeah, I mean, you another thing that you can kind of take for granted once you've seen it so many times is just like, oh, it's just another day, when Miles is out there with his ability to protect the rim and deter guys from even going in there when he's down in the paint. It's very noticeable when he's not out there on the floor when it's just a sprint to the rim by the opponent. Because while Thomas Bryant is a big body and I like what he's been able to do, he's not necessarily a rim protector. And then they go to that small lineup with Pascal and Obi Toppin out there together. While athletic and has some length, but it's just a different skill set being able to utilize your size and length and athleticism to deter people from going to the rim, and that's what Miles does. So you definitely need him out there. You need all hands on deck, especially during this backstretch. He's a key component to what they've been able to do in terms of turning the organization around over the last couple seasons.
What are you looking for from this team to maintain? Right now, 4-hole Eastern Conference. I suggest that they are where they need to be and where they should be with my level of expectations. What do you think they have to do to maintain? What's at the top of your list that you want to see either improve or certainly build after the All-Star break with this team?
Yeah, I would say regain that consistent toughness and defensive execution that we saw for the better part of maybe 2 months. I feel like maybe the last week and a half or so, there was some slippage there. A lot of times people will look straight to shot making. That also kind of fell off a little bit here over the last 10 days or so before the All-Star break. I look to see that find its level and they continue to get back to shooting the ball well. But they've got to continue to be able to hang their hat on the toughness and defensive prowess that we saw them make tremendous strides at for maybe 2 months or so. I think that's what's going to be able to carry them and really try to solidify their opportunity to host that first round. I think they're in a great position to do that. The Milwaukee Bucks have been up and down through the entire season. Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard, they have some of their health issues that they've had. Not significant health issues, but when those guys aren't in the lineup, clearly they're a different team. But a major opportunity here with less than 30 games remaining to get that fourth spot.
It's, Eddie Gill, Pacers TV and radio, joins us now. Your impression on the Grizzlies. Very talented team. Here's the one dude, and I've watched them a number of times, and he always stands out, is Jalen Wells. Little to nothing, I think, was known when, he came out of college, but I think he's making this season his presence known with the way that he consistently plays. He does a little bit of everything for them, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, again, I referenced the fit of the team. They definitely have done a nice job with that roster, and yeah, he's kind of one of those guys that you're not really sure about coming in, but man, he's definitely done a nice job of doing all the small things, and he's got a work ethic and desire to go out there and compete at a high level and earn his keep. So they've done a nice job with that team, and they're kind of like the sleeper out west. Everyone's talking about OKC and obviously things that are going on with Dallas. Lakers have come on, obviously. Now the Warriors with the trade of Jimmy Butler. But tell you what, Memphis is a sleeper. Obviously Denver has really come on, so they're looking like a championship caliber team as well. But whoever sees Memphis in the playoffs, they're going to have a handful, especially if they're healthy.
Pacers have, in 3 of the 4 games in this homestand, a 36-win team, two 36-win teams, and a 31-win team. So that's difficult to restart.
Yeah, no question about it. You got your hands full when you think about Memphis coming in to talk about how hot the Nuggets are. They're arguably one of the hottest teams going into All-Star break. And then a Clippers team that you beat on their floor. So those 3 teams will be really challenging, and the Raptors are no easy task either. So it's great to be home, but definitely some tough teams that'll be coming into this building as you get down the backstretch of this season and trying to vie for these playoff positions.
Yeah, they throw you that back-to-back to that 5 o'clock Sunday afternoon, 7 o'clock Monday evening back-to-back with the Clippers and the Nuggets, too, right there. So thank you very much, schedule maker.
Exactly. The glass half full is, like you said, you get to go sleep in your own bed. But, man, when you wake back up, you got a bear coming in that building again. So, tough back-to-back. Fortunately, it's home, and you want to be able to try to get those. That's the good thing about the remaining part of the season. I think the majority of those games are home games, where it was, especially December. I mean, December was a bear in terms of the road schedule. So the schedule starts to come back to the Pacers a little bit with regards to home and away.
Are they where you thought they were going to be right now, or above or below that point?
Coming into the season, I had every expectation that this team could certainly vie for a top 4 spot. So I would say yes. I think they responded incredibly well after struggling early on. I mean, it did hurt when you lose Nembhard and Neesmith. You can grow, and then throw Shepard in there. Also, you lose all 3 of those guys. They're your best perimeter defenders. But I thought that they would be better early on. But, man, responded incredibly well to get back to this position. So that's a long-winded yes. I think they're in the position that I thought they might be.
Yeah, a little bit more like January. No doubt about that. Is the type of play we need. All right, both TV and radio for Eddie Gill, the former NBA guard. You can hear him here. You can see him on Pacers TV coming up tomorrow, the first of 4 straight at home for the Pacers and the Memphis Grizzlies tomorrow at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Eddie on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. It is always a pleasure, Eddie, man. We'll see you down there very soon. Thanks a lot.
Oh, man, the pleasure is mine. Thank you, guys.
Eddie Gill on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So, did you guys hear? The NFL informed teams the salary cap for 2025 would be between $277.5 million and $281.5 million. Now, there's going to be a final figure once NFLPA have their negotiations. But regardless of what happens with that, the cap will rise significantly for the second year in a row. So last year, the largest cap increase took place of all time, 224.8 to 255.4 from 23 to 24. This year's increase means the cap will have increased by at least $53 million over the past 2 years. So you're asking in terms of the Colts, and I'm glad that you asked, because we talked about this last week with Mike Chappell, maybe a little bit yesterday with Joel A. Erickson of the Star. But there is still some decisions to be made and some money to be saved. So if Chris Ballard, I'm trying to say, if Chris Ballard really is going to change, not his entire philosophy, but update his philosophy, which through 8 seasons so far has not worked, then maybe you're going to see some significant moves. And we talked about Braden Smith at right tackle, Samson Ibukam, Raekwon Davis, Tyquan Lewis, among others. So I think with those players, you would have a significant amount. So we'll see if they can get their total. And listen, I get bored with cap space as much as anybody else, but this news breaks today, announced today. So it is significant to suggest that the Colts could position themselves, and we'll see what they end up doing with it. But this is going to be a different set of circumstances because normally we're not going over the possibility of them cutting loose players like this. Normally we're going over how they're going to resign guys. But what this is going to do, it is going to tell us exactly the path, whether or not it is going to be different, significantly different, or not at all, than going into year number 9. Number 9. Chris Ballard may end up taking. By the way, Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen, I think both an hour apart next Tuesday. I don't know yet how that's going to work out. James, do we know? So if they're going in the late, do I go out there? Are they going to be somebody on with me? Now, they're doing these things when I'm on the air. So I'm kind of wondering about how that's going to work.
It could get interesting.
They could just go back-to-back with me right there.
Yeah, they could.
Can you imagine two dudes that would hate more than anything in the world doing that?
Let's actually get them on at the same time with you.
Yeah. I still remember the last time I was at the Combine. Remember that? We shot the video?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that it was this video right here. If you're watching via the AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, listen, I say this all the time. I don't blame him one bit. I'm a jackass. I sit here for 3 hours a day and go over the lack of accomplishments. Right? And nobody wants to hear that, I'm sure. But literally, James, you remember, Chris sat there like this the entire time thinking, man, I would rather be doing anything else than talking to this clown.
I don't think he uncrossed his arms a single time.
There was no happiness going on there. I don't blame him. If we reverse the roles, and I'm the one out there, and I'm through 8 seasons, and things haven't worked out, and there's this clown on the radio. I mean, you saw, there was a direction taken at Miles on Facebook, and I had to call Scott a dumbass. Can you imagine what I'd be? I'd have my arms crossed, too.
You'd be on the official Colts Facebook page responding to everything under the official Colts title.
Probably have 15 burners. Yeah, we'll see if the Colts end up cutting some guys and trying to get in the neighborhood of upwards of $55 to $60 million. We'll see. And we'll see if that is officially ushering in a change in philosophy, which was talked about in that postseason presser back in January, if you remember. Quick break. We'll come back with me, Alan Carpick, top of the hour. Chris Kramer is set. Coming up tomorrow, the former Boilermaker guard, I don't know if you've seen this, has a video. Now, this is to the players, but a video on how he believes the players should handle this 3-game losing streak. Because we're talking about, for this group, very foreign territory, but how they should handle this 3-game losing streak considering IU is on the horizon Sunday down in Bloomington. Chris Kramer joins us coming up on tomorrow's show to discuss that. By the way, you can just find him on X and check out that video. But he joins us coming up tomorrow. Alan Carpick in the 5 o'clock hour. Dave Matthews Band tickets for you on the road for this show coming up tomorrow. And cannot wait to join you at Tom's Watch Bar. I shall explain what's happening tomorrow and more coming up. Don't go anywhere. The AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live and the AAA Travel Expo coming up on Saturday at the Ritz-Charles in Carmel. Don't miss it. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Be the high point of my day. It's all downhill from here.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Alan Carpick, top of the hour, Golden Black Illustrated. Blue Meanie writes this, JMV, I can honestly say I didn't think I'd get a sensuous nurse reference today. Tip of the hat, my brother. Thank you, Meanie. Hey, I'm always ready, willing, and able to bring it on a daily basis right here. Whatever you want to talk about. We can do Ursula Andress, sensuous nurse, Skinamax, Red Dawn, first PG-13. This was Jake a little bit earlier. Or if you want to talk episodes of the Rockford Files or Quincy, by God, I can do that too. Whatever you guys want. I mentioned this. Brian Kelly's going to join us, I believe, coming up tomorrow too. We're going to be down at Tom's Watch Bar. Doug Bowles will be there. He has their Doug Bowles is my president shirts from the shop in Broad Ripple and Carmel, and also Hooligans from Bloomington t-shirts, which is outstanding. One of the reasons why I can remember this, Trent Green was the quarterback in Bloomington back then, and I was at Hooligans. This had to be like 1991. I don't think it was the era of my fake ID, but I believe it was 1991. And nobody had chicks crawling all over him like Trent Green. I was so incredibly jealous. All over him. I have a great Pat Knight story. We didn't know one another from Hooligans back then, too. But the T-shirt is going to be outstanding. I cannot wait to see you all there coming up tomorrow. And then we're going to talk up the Carb Day 2025 entertainment. And I believe the entertainment's going to join us. It's from my man Seltzer, JMV. We played the Gus Macker in Belding, Michigan a couple of times. Actually, you go to the epicenter of the Macker, huh? They would shut down the entire town, and you would have to walk or take buses to get into town to play. Seriously, before it faded away, especially around here, it was, really something you would do a couple of different times. You would certainly do the one at IU in Bloomington in the spring, in April. Always do that one. Love Macker. John Martin is, I think, inside the AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live. I like the list of coaches so far. What about Jay Wright? Thoughts on that? I think Jay Wright digs what he's doing right now and is retired. I think he's going to stay there. But do I like Jay Wright? Yes. I just think that if you get out of what you were doing after that level of success at Villanova because you don't like the whole landscape of college athletics, especially basketball in this case, that maybe a couple of years of being outside that. Same thing with Tony Bennett. I just think if you hang it up, then you're hanging it up. So I would doubt it. As much as I like him and as accomplished as he is, I would highly doubt it. By the way, JMV, I agree. Someone badass and sleazy. I don't even think you have to be sleazy anymore. I think sleazy just kind of comes with the territory. You don't have to, well, he's got a little bit of sleaze on him right there. You're just built for how college athletics might be right now. Now, I mentioned this. I think you need, and I don't think you can be delicate with it, but I think there's a combination you need to have with basketball acumen, or as I like to say, the basketball smart's real good, and a little bit of badass. You would consider Illinois having a down year, but I think a great example of that would be Brad Underwood. I think he brings both. The smart's real good in basketball, and he's a little badass. And I've mentioned others. Mick Cronin, I think, is the same way at UCLA. Chris Beard's definitely that, except Chris Beard's carrying around a lot of Samsonite, too. Pat Kelsey in Louisville, I think you could describe him as such. That's what I was looking for right there. This from Chris. Listen to the show for many years. My question is, how many coaches that could take over an IU basketball program like that. Well, I mean, hell, I think every coach could take it over, but, they've had coaches take it over now, basically since they've tried to, replace, Sampson, who tried to replace Davis, who tried to replace Knight, and it, other than Crean for a couple of years, simply put, hasn't worked. And really, since the run of Crean and that faded away, it's been a mess. It's been a disaster. Because you can say that it is not the same. And I'll put it this way. I will judge by what the deeply rooted, long-time IU fans will tell me. And it is a common theme. Well, they will suggest that, hey, I like Brad Stevens. I wanted Brad Stevens. And if not him, I think prepare to be underwhelmed. And that's just kind of the program in a nutshell right there. Prepare to be underwhelmed. So, yeah, that combination of just being Underwood's not, I don't think he is on anybody's list. I just kind of think he has that particular balance. And, clearly he likes a little bit of cash. I think he would take that, but I know it's a down year for Illinois. They lose last night at Wisconsin. That type of personality, I think, is one that I would be drawn to. Because you've really tried everything else. The former player, the pat on the back, the likable guy, the little engine that could. You've tried a lot of different things, and those different things, simply put, have not worked. So a little bit of badass is not bad. I don't think. Again, you have to have the smarts real good in basketball. But I don't think that is a bad quality whatsoever. JMV, where was Hooligans in Bloomington? I was there in 93 to 97. It may have been by then. T-Shaw closed. I believe they got in a lot of trouble because they used to let underage people in, from what the word was. And they got busted for that. So 93 to 97, it may, because that was the first Bloomington location as well of what was then called BW3, that now is known as Buffalo Wild Wings. That was the first Bloomington location, Dunkirk Square. It was then called BW3, which was an outstanding place. But that took over from the spot, and I'm assuming that Hooligans probably was forced out a little bit too. So I hit that a little bit pre-21, and certainly maybe for a year, maybe two. So by the time you got there, 93 through 97, it may have been gone. Rex says, get on the horn and convince Dusty to come to IU. We're counting on you. Listen, I sit here before you, Rex, and I think it'd be great if Dusty was the next head coach of IU. Absolutely great. I just look at what he has right now, where he is right now, and I think everybody counts on going to IU, having his roots in that area mattering. But he said this on this show before, wherever he hangs his hat is home. I mean, he has lived somewhat of a nomadic lifestyle. He's been all over the place. I mean, that's how he has earned, his badge to get to where he is right now. As a video coordinator for USC and Henry Bibby, as whatever he was in Ypsilanti, Eastern Michigan, Louisiana Tech, IU, UAB, Florida, first head coaching gig, FAU. I think if it matters about where you live, I would have stayed in Boca, to be honest. I've said that before to him. If it really matters on where you live, I probably would have stayed in Boca. it just has rarely mattered to him. Now, again, might he have a little bit of pull if asked, if they have interest, and they certainly should have interest. And you're number one, what he's accomplishing right now with that Michigan team, that program from what it was a year ago to where it is right now. And you've got all the resources. And I know that normally I'm a hater of the state of Michigan, and I do hate the state of Michigan, but the job that he has done and where he is after 1 year, you bail on that success. I realize, but it is, and I don't like Michigan, but I am in it for his level of success, certainly, and he has shown that there. So it would have to be, I think, more compelling than, hey, you grew up here, or hey, you went to college here. And I don't know if IU's program is that compelling right now. I could be wrong. I don't know if it's that compelling. All right, quick break. We shall return. Alan Carpick, top of the hour. IU Purdue coming up on Sunday. I'm going to tell you what, IU offers up a lot of what the Boilermakers struggle with. Maybe collectively you get disappointed in the talent, but the individual athleticism and talent for IU is there. And that is something that has given the Boilermakers, certainly recently, a lot of issues. We discuss with Chris Kramer, the former guard of the Boilermakers, joins us on tomorrow's show On Location. We will look for you downtown. I'll explain why you need to be there next.
1075, The Fan.
Eddie Gill a little bit earlier, the former NBA guard, Pacers radio and TV. Pacers back at it after the All-Star break. That, of course, coming up tomorrow. Tip times at 7 o'clock, 6:30 coverage begins. Pat Boylan courtside from Gainbridge Fieldhouse has you here as a part of the Pacers radio network. Eddie will bounce back from the radio broadcast to the television broadcast. Tom's watch bar for this show tomorrow. Doug Bowles, Speedway Prez and IndyCar president, newly appointed IndyCar president, will join us tomorrow as we discuss the announcement of the Carb Day 2025 entertainment. Let me tell you this. There is nothing that helps circumstances, I don't care who we're talking about, helps the circumstances of the type of weather that's impacting our situation right now. I am so sick of this. Any conversation regarding Carb Days automatically, regardless of the entertainment, going to bring up much warmer, much better, incredible, and certainly much more drunk times. And I, for one, am all in on that. Give you a great example. By the way, tomorrow, beginning at 3, Tom's Watch Bar, join us there. Sean Ash had this within the last hour from Channel 13. He is a meteorologist. Impactful snow. He describes this as overspreads the state between 6 and 9 p.m. tonight and departs between 3 and 5 a.m. 1 to 2 inches of accumulation. Roads will be slick, slow, and snow-covered at times. Plan for some school delays. Here's the kicker. Also plan for minus 15 to minus 5 wind chills coming up tomorrow morning. I'm telling you, this winter can smooch my rear. And any discussion for Carb Day, regardless of what takes place, that, my friends, is solid with me. Should be with you as well. Block by Block adds this. How about this for a vacation for the show here? This is not bad. April 30th through May the 4th. It is called the 29th Annual Key West Songwriters Festival. Hell, I don't even know if I know any of these songwriters. I guess you don't really care as long as you're going to Key West for a Songwriters Festival. There will probably be, you think there'll be much marijuana at the Songwriters Festival in Key West?
There might be a little bit.
Just wondering. It does sound fun, though. I got to say. Hey, JMV, I saw what you said a little bit earlier today about the old Sears NFL gear being the absolute best. Seriously, there is nothing right now that compares to that. And if you really want to stir the echoes of greatness, and I talk about that all the time, that's how you turn back the clock, is with that gear. That gear was the best. The helmet designs, the face masks, and all the different areas in which you can get from coats to shirts to hats to pajamas to robes. Now, you couldn't get any of that stuff, especially the pajamas and the robes, near an open flame. But there is nothing better than that moment. Alex writes this, definitely had some Cowboys gear back in the day from the greatest catalog that there ever was. You would have 3 general areas, at least I would, where we would bounce around. And it would be the Sears NFL portion with the gear. The Sears Wish Book catalog also had an incredible level of toys. And as I mentioned before, the bra section. All 3 incredibly important back then. Kurt writes this, 100% I had a lot of greatness in this picture. The Sears Dolphin t-shirt. And the ping pong ball lever basket. That is awesome right there. I didn't even notice that, Kurt, in the picture. The ping pong ball lever-driven basketball game. Man, that's awesome. Well done right there, Kurt. Thank you. All right, quick one. We'll come back. Alan Carpick, we're going to ask him about the Boilers, their 3-game losing streak. where they are right now, getting their rival IU, who played them very well a month ago in Mackey. What needs to be done. Chris Kramer, the former guard of the Boilermakers, explained in a video what needs to be done, and he'll further explain on this show coming up tomorrow when we're at Tom's Watch Bar. Chris Kramer tomorrow, Alan Carpick on the other side, Tom's Watch Bar also tomorrow, and Speedway President Doug Bowles. We will discuss Carb Day 2025. The salary cap elevates to a point to where how much money will the Colts try to save and who will end up being cut because of that. That and more with the Alan Carpet coming up after 5. Dave Matthews Band summertime concert tickets to give away as well. Don't go anywhere. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live is active and ready to go if you want to get in there right now. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan, too.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Thank you for joining us, too. A lot of love girls sectional play coming up this weekend. A lot of good local stories. I don't want to make sure I miss any of those for you. I know a lot of friends and family out there have a number that will be participating. Class 4A, Hamilton Southeastern, Valpo, Warsaw, McCutcheon up in Frankfort coming up on Saturday. Southport, and again, remember Southport High School, because we play there Sunday morning, make sure you replace the nets or at least have replacement nets and ladders ready to go so we can play with nets on Sunday morning. Pike and Bloomington South, Gibson Southern and Lawrence North, 3A, Huntington North, Norwell Delta, Columbia City Highland, 3A, New Albany, Cathedral, Roncalli. Coach Sims is outstanding. Greensburg, I get a lot of people showing love for Greensburg. That's Greensburg and Evansville Central down in New Albany coming up on Saturday. In 2A, Logansport, Whitco, Eastside, Sheridan, Rensselaer Central. In Jasper, Park Heritage, South Knox, Brownstown Central, and Heritage Christian. And in Class A, in Elkhart Christian, Lafayette Central Catholic, Marquette Catholic, North Miami, Borden, South Decatur, or Anderson Prep, I should say. And how about the Jeeps of Northeast Dubois? That would be Northeast Dubois in Shelbyville coming up on Saturday. Ladies taking the main stage. And by the way, Tony Donahue mentions I have the call on all 3 games up in Huntington. That's at IHSAA TV, our good friend Tony D. Now check out Tony doing the 3 games up in Huntington this weekend. Meantime, Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline from the Gold and Black Illustrated pages. It is Alan Carpick with us. Hello, Alan. How are you?
I am fine, JMV. I may be better than the Purdue Boilermakers right now, but I'm going to guess you're going to talk about that.
You kind of sound like the Boilermaker defense has played the past 2 games.
You know, JMV, you and I have a long history. And about, I suppose 7-8 years ago, I had a little cold like this and started hacking up a lung on your show. So I'm going to work hard not to do that. I've got a Coke Zero in hand. I'd like to tell you I had some whiskey too, but I don't. But I'm ready to go, my friend.
Well, you know where to go to get the bourbon and the whiskey is right here with me.
There you go.
People ask me all the time, how do you keep your relative health? And I say, well, because Heaven Hill Distillery and Brent Alverson. I mean, every time I feel something coming along, I dial it down with a little bit of bourbon right there, buddy. So that's what we're doing.
I should have done that a couple of days ago, but I sound worse than I am. But it's my deep radio voice, only hoping to match you here. So
well, I'm going to have you. I'm going to have you do a Barry White classic coming up at the tail end too. So be ready for that. Okay.
All right, I'm ready.
I do want to start right here. I guess we'll look ahead to rivalry part 2 in Bloomington on Sunday with Purdue and IU. The one thing that stands out to me about this matchup is IU individually, with athleticism and talent, bring to the table a lot of what we have seen issue-wise for this Boilermaker team recently. And it was tough anyway in Mackey, so you can imagine right now the way things are going for this Purdue basketball team, how difficult that is going to be on Sunday.
I would agree. I mean, Indiana loses by 5 points, leads with 2 minutes to go in the game in Mackey. And, yes, your point I think that you were making is that Indiana's roster is every bit as talented as Purdue's. And things haven't worked out maybe quite as well, but Purdue's not trending in the right way. Indiana won at Michigan State. Purdue did not, as we all know. And I think it's going to make for a very challenging, and Indiana's got kind of nothing to lose at this point. I think they would like nothing better than just spank Purdue, and probably Mike Whitson would like the same thing. So it's going to be a tough game for Purdue. It would be it is every time they go there, maybe with the exception of the first half of that game last year. It's always a battle for Purdue and Bloomington.
Yeah, it's 1:30 Sunday afternoon, 93 WIBC with Don Fisher. His pregame show will begin coming up at 12:30. I'll let you dial it down, take a drink, and recalibrate to come back. This is what really stands out to me, especially about this 3-game losing streak, and I believe this is the first one going back to a COVID season, is now you really see, and I'm not even talking about it offensively. They can still put up numbers, but anybody and their mother will get to the rim, under the rim, over the rim on the Boilers right now without concern, without worry, and that is the first, maybe not the first significant time, but certainly the first consistent time to where that has really stood out to me as being evident about this Boilermaker defense. Without him, there is nobody not just to block shots, but the intimidating factor of scaring people out of the lane is absolutely in the rearview.
Well, you remember how Steve Alford used to shoot free throws at about 92%. That's what teams are shooting from 2 against Purdue. I'm talking about Michigan State and Wisconsin. It's not quite that much, but it's close in the last 2 games. And you're absolutely right. Purdue's lack of a shot blocker, obviously Zach Edey, but Daniel Jacobson, has been gone since early in the year. He might have developed into that type of guy for Purdue. He certainly had the height and the skill to do some of that, but that's been a problem. And you have to wonder now, have teams figured some things out? I mean, Indiana in the first game at Mackey Arena also, Trey Galloway was making a cottage industry of driving to the basket. Not sure why he didn't get the ball maybe in the last 10 seconds of that game. And Purdue's got to figure something out there because Caleb First and Trey Coffin-Wren are decent defenders. So Coffin-Wren certainly had foul troubles, but they're not rim protectors, and it's really causing Purdue problems. And the Boilermakers' inability to stop the dribble. And that was the case last night, in addition to the fact that you had bad turnovers. You had run-out turnovers. Purdue didn't have a lot of them against Michigan State, but everything, I think they had 12 turnovers turned into 19 points. So basically every time Purdue turned the ball over, Michigan State had a dunk on the other end.
So why was it working so well for Purdue, other than maybe in January, the second half of Ohio State, and at the tail end of January was that IU game that we referenced a moment ago. Yeah. And I guess, they give up 81 to Iowa, which is a high-volume scoring team. Once you get into February, they still win. USC, 72, high-volume scoring team, a game they still win in early February. But what has significantly changed for the most part defensively that we have seen making that transition from January to February?
That's a great question. Is it a question that teams have figured out Purdue truly what Purdue's Achilles heel is? I'm sure there's some of that. Big Ten coaches are skilled at that, and they know what to look for and know what to try to do. But Purdue's inability, again, to be broken a bit off the dribble. And why was it good? Maybe it was a level of competition in the first in January. I don't know. Though certainly against Michigan, a team that Purdue beat by 20 plus back on January 24th, that wasn't the case. And Michigan didn't really, had a lot of issues. They scored 64 points, but my point is that Purdue was able to defend at a much higher level. So that's the $64,000 question. I think Purdue's got to be able to solve that as best as possible or scheme around it. If it's going to not only win at Bloomington, but, you've got UCLA coming home. Now, I know UCLA lost last night to Minnesota, which is shocking to me. But also Illinois and Rutgers, there's no gimmies on that schedule when you're not defending the way you need to defend.
So Alan Carpick, Golden Black Illustrated, Purdue IU coming up on Sunday, round number 2, 1:30 is that tip time down in Bloomington. And I was having this conversation before the start of the show. You mentioned this, actually 2 I'm going to get to. I do want to double back to the 2-point makes. And last night, it was evident Michigan State is not a good 3-point shooting team, and they showed that, barely over 30%, but just so dominant inside 3 to the tune of 58%. And I know that it's the lack of an intimidating factor but it's also the lack of guys being able to stay in front of their guys.
Yeah, and I think that's been a common. C.J. Cox, the coaching staff loves C.J. Cox and certainly Jakari Harris, two freshmen, in terms of their ability to guard the basketball and do it at a full court level. But you're having some problems there with that. There may be some other weaknesses that just not getting the job done, and you just can't do that. And you look at last night's game. Purdue was really down 4 points with 2 minutes to go, or in that time frame. This game was because Michigan State couldn't hit threes. It just was a case where you couldn't stop them when you had to stop them, and that was the case in the entire final 20 minutes against Wisconsin. You just couldn't stop them all, giving up 58 points in the second half, and it's all presents a huge challenge for Purdue moving forward, because the Big Ten championship and the chance to three-peat has all been out the window. Purdue's still in good position to get a good seed in the NCAA tournament and finish the season well, but this is something that needs to be figured out and solved if it's going to do that.
It's Alan Carpick, Golden Black Illustrated, is with us. Do you think that I should say in this case, that Matt needs to find more time and more of a breather for Braden Smith in games, or 39-40? Is that going to be the norm because it has to be the norm and because he's capable of that being the norm?
That's another good question. I think, he did sit for about a minute last night, which is about the first time he has in quite a while. I do think there's a lot on his plate, and that on Braden Smith's plate. I mean, that's obvious, and especially with Trey Kaufman-Renn being in foul trouble, I think Purdue has to. It also makes it trouble for or less effective Fletcher Lawyer too. They're just not getting as many open looks, and so I think he's going to play. Braden Smith's going to play 38 to 40 minutes throughout the rest of the season. It's just going to be a question of whether has he hit a little bit of a wall? Maybe. He did not play as well last night. Turned the ball over more times than he would like, but he's not been great maybe the last 3 or 4 games. But that he sets a pretty darn high standard, and Purdue is going to go as far as he takes them. But I also think the other key is that I know they want Trey Kaufman-Renn at 30 minutes a game, and they're getting close to that. But still, having him in foul trouble or that threat of that is really cramping Purdue's style some offensively. And yet, offensively, their numbers, you look back at the Wisconsin game, the numbers were off the chart in terms of being, only 3 turnovers or whatever it was, 4 turnovers, and shooting the way they did last night, not as good. But I don't know if the offense is the problem right now. It's just the ability the offense in the turnover category can be a problem, and also just finding a way to get other guys involved as much as possible. And of course, I'm going to guess we're going to get to the Heidi Colvin question.
Yeah. Well, and before we get to that, I thought you brought up a great point regarding Fletcher Lawyer. 5 field goal attempts. I mean, they have this so-called big 3, and one of the 3 cannot have 5 field goal attempts.
I would agree, and I think that still is a function. If Lawyer lets the game come to him, there's some people that are critical of him. He's not a guy that he does drive to the basket and does do that relatively very well in certain games. But he also is a beneficiary of runouts, causing turnovers. He gets a lot of threes in transition, and that's just not happening right now. And I don't know that Lawyer is what he is, and Matt Painter loves him as a player, but you need him. He needs to be at that 13 to 15 points a game, and you're absolutely right. Boy, you get him 8 or 9 shots, he's going to be there because he's shooting at such a high clip this year. So I think that's an interesting observation that Purdue, again, the big 3 needs to be the big 3, but the big 3 can only be the big 3 if all big 3 are on the floor at the same time and causing problems for opposing defenses.
Yeah, he's Alan Carpick, Golden Black Illustrated, Boilermakers, Hoosiers. Again, part 2 on Sunday down in Bloomington. All right, you bring up Cam Heidi and Miles Colvin. I thought maybe the 3 threes in Wisconsin may have gotten him going a little bit in the second half. However, it did not. Last night he was scoreless. Heidi had 6 points. It's the thing that stands out to me with Heidi. Heidi, it just takes threes. He's capable and athletic enough, I think, to get something, try to find something off the drive. Why is he so often settled? I'm assuming because they basically give him wide open step-in 3 attempts, and that's what he takes. Because it seems to me like he is athletic and talented enough, if he would want to maybe force the issue on a couple of these attempts.
Well, I think for him and Colvin, they're both guys that need to continue to improve their ball handling skills and their ability. Now, we definitely saw Heidi last year, especially get some runs at the rack, so to speak, and that I think I think it's a good point. You know, it's funny that yesterday he had 2 threes. He had another one that was called back due to a foul before the shot. So I mean, he did make some yesterday, and Colvin got clocked, if that's the right word. Really hit hard. In the head, and to be honest, don't even know if there's a whole lot more of. I don't know if there's any long-term ramifications of that. But both those guys, need to contribute if Purdue's going to be in the situation. And I thought Heidi is starting to look a little bit more comfortable. Michigan State wasn't guarding him either. I mean, they were leaving him open, and statistically that makes sense based on how they've been shooting of late. And Colvin, I still think if Purdue's going to have the ceiling that it wants in the NCAA tournament, you're going to need him to make shots, and they're going to have somebody else step forward from an offensive standpoint. But Cox and Harris have done that too. Some, Harris hit a 3 last night, but it's clear that you got to have some wild cards make plays at the right time if you're going to get the job done. And Purdue is still a really good basketball team, but maybe they just run into a rut. But and maybe it's up to Matt Painter to figure out what's next. My guess is that they will, but the schedule doesn't make it any easier down the stretch.
How much better do you think this Purdue defense would be if Jacobson were available?
It's easy to say, oh, they'd be a heck of a lot better because he would have developed and whatever, and possibly, but just because you would have a guy that could actually do some things at the rim, assuming he developed. They love him as a player. He's a high-end guy, I think, in this recruiting class, but we only saw about 3 games, so it's a little bit unfair to say he'd have made all the difference in the world, but it certainly couldn't have hurt. And to have him around the rim, just 7'4", he's going to block some shots.
All right, Alan Carpick, Gold and Black Illustrated, got through it right there. Hey, by the way, in closing, really quickly, then I'll let you go because I know you're not feeling great, but you mentioned Trey Galloway off the bench for 15, and maybe even more so than that, Matt mentioned his significance in the post-game presser after that first matchup on January the 31st. So I'm assuming that is going to be maybe a hardcore focus to Boilermakers defensively not to see happen again on Sunday. Is that something you would highlight as to, wondering if they'll try to eliminate that, considering how big it was for IU to maintain in that first matchup?
Well, I think it will be. I think that, I look at the Indiana and with Anthony Leal and Luke Goody and Trey Galloway, the guys that this game means a heck of a lot to. It doesn't mean anything else to the rest of the Indiana players. I can't speak for them, but this is a huge game. And Galloway's played very well against Purdue for most of his career in games in West Lafayette and in Bloomington. They're going to have to stop it. I think it's still a game of emotion, and which it always is, but you don't want to let Indiana to get confident in what it's doing, because if it does, it's going to be successful, I think, on its home court. And I know Indiana's had a lot of problem playing at home, but the world's a little different right now with Woodson's fate in hand. They still have things to play for. I mean, it doesn't mean they can't make the NCAA tournament. They got a long way to go to get there at 6-9 record, but they've got things to play for, and that's why I think Purdue will get their best game on Sunday afternoon.
It's almost funny. IU fans would like to probably I've described it as the whole cliche of having your cake and eating it too, because you get to get a coaching change, which everybody wants, but at the same time, you still want to see your favorite team win, and you certainly want to see your favorite team win so you can brag about them beating Purdue. So You get what you want with a coaching change at the end of the year regardless. So I'm assuming that everybody will be as fired up as usual in Bloomington on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm an Indiana fan, then yeah, absolutely. You'd like nothing better just to be viewed at one of your lower moments with a coaching change and a 6-9 record to stick it to Purdue and put Purdue in a 4-game losing streak. I got to think there'll be a lot of motivation. I think the fan base once the game gets going, there won't be any problem of having some energy in Assembly Hall for that game. I can't remember many times when there hasn't been. So.
Nah.
I would expect it to be that way on Sunday.
All right, man. Get better. I appreciate you hopping on here. We'll do it again very soon, Alan. Thank you.
Always appreciated, JMV. Thanks so much.
You got it. Alan Carpick right there. I used to reference him as the Alan Carpick Project, and I think you really dug that. Gold and Black Illustrated on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Dave Matthews Band tickets. 2 shows coming up this summer at Ruoff, and I've got a pair of tickets all week long, in fact, every day, for you to win. So this time tomorrow from 3 until 6, Tom's Watch Bar. And I want to see everybody down there. I'm going to watch for you at Tom's Watch Bar. So on your way to the Grizzlies and the Pacers as we restart after the All-Star break, Tom's Watch Bar, me, Speedway Press, Doug Bowles. We'll be talking about the Carb Day 2025 entertainment. And then that entertainment, I think, is going to make an appearance on the show coming up tomorrow. Chris Kramer, the former guard of the Boilermakers, had a video I'm going to get to. We'll talk about the IU-Purdue matchup with Chris coming up on tomorrow's show and the video advice he had for the Boilermaker players a little bit earlier today. Mike Chappell on the elevation tomorrow. We'll do that. We learned today the elevation of the salary cap and then how much more space the Colts may want to try to create, especially if Chris Ballard dares to be different coming up during free agency. Mike Chappell tomorrow, but we want to look for you. Tom's Watch Bar, that is coming up tomorrow beginning at 3. And Speedway Press, Doug Bowles will be there with us. That is tomorrow. Tom's Watch Bar, 140 Illinois, downtown with this show coming up tomorrow. The AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. The AAA Travel Expo is coming up on Saturday at the Ritz-Charles in Carmel. Don't miss that. The stream, the app, it's HD Radio and 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Back with you next.
Nom, this is bowling. There are rules.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, I saw this from Scott Agnes earlier today. FanDuel Sports Network is now available as an add-on subscription via Amazon's Prime Video. $19.99 per month, and Scott describes it as another option for sports fans. All right, here is my curiosity because I've been made fun of for a number of years. I hang with DirecTV, and I have since, get this, 2000. And in fact, I think I basically had it even before I had to pay for it. And when I was ripping it off with satellite TV, this goes back to, if I remember, especially the NFL packages, maybe back to 1996, 95, something like that. But I've been a DirecTV customer since 2000. 25 years. And I pay, I don't even want to tell you because it's so embarrassing how much I pay. And I don't know why, because I watch sports, Andy Griffith, Quincy, The Rockford Files. I do watch the episodic program called, hold on a second, What's Left of Us, The Rest of Us.
The Last of Us?
The Last of Us. I like Pablo Pascal. I think he's a good dude.
Pedro Pascal?
Pedro Pascal.
You're 0 for 2 right now, man.
I thought his name was Pablo. It's not?
It's not, no.
Dang it. Pedro Pascal. I like him a great deal. And that little girl, I like her too.
I can't remember what her name is.
I don't either. She was in Game of Thrones.
She was, yeah.
All right, so I watched that. I started watching, I think this is season 3 of White Lotus. I like the one when they were in Italy. I don't know if I like this one. Anyway, I don't watch the HBO documentaries sometimes. I don't watch it. It's like, there's no way I get all these different channels and I don't really watch a lot of other stuff. But I have it to make sure I get the Pacer games. And my mom does the same thing. My mom's a diehard Pacer fan, loves Obi, all that. And she complains about the price tag, but I said the alternative is, all right, you don't know if you're going to get it and whatever. I mean, way out in the woods where I grew up, where she still lives, yeah, good luck with the streaming service. I'm curious, though, for those that have cut the cord and you have the streaming services right now, the only thing that I have noticed is it seems like you are paying for more and more. And I thought that was there not a YouTube TV dispute with CBS and Paramount here recently? It seems like you're paying more and more. And what the reason you had behind cutting the cord, is that still prominently saving you money, or has that become a massive pain in your ass, is what I want to know. Normally it was me saying, well, here we go again. There's Channel 13. It's gone. NBC's problematic, and they're going to negotiate and use us as a pawn in their negotiations, as they always do. Now, whatever happened to the customer is always right. All that jackassery I've talked about in terms of DirecTV or Dish Network or whatever cable service you're provided with. And everybody always says, hey, you got to jump. Cut the cord. It seems like more and more now that it is equally becoming a pain if you've cut the cord. Am I wrong about that? I could be, because I am not in it. But it seems like more and more now you're seeing disputes and you're having issues getting what you want. And basically what I want to make sure I get the Pacers, and I want to make sure I get the Reds, and then everything else I don't really care. Now, a little Andy Griffith, a little Quincy, occasional nudity, and I'm covered. But that struck me the other day to ask, and I meant to ask you before, and I think I was motivated by YouTube TV. They were running a little scroll at the bottom of a screen that suggested that all the CBS channels and the Paramount channels were going to be taken away. So that compelled me to ask the question. Thus, I am curious about it. Skivvy says DirecTV since 2000 with me and DirecTV. And believe me, I go all the way back to where I had a scrambler and we got absolutely everything. It was just all over the place. It was like the Wild West of TV. The only problem with that is then they realized how much that they were capable of charging, and that's where we are today. Seems like it's a little bit different. Derek's got a streaming answer for me. Derek, am I at all right about my assumption regarding streaming right now?
Yeah, John. The only thing that I found that really works is Fubo TV, because I'm right in the same boat with you. I just want to watch the Reds, the Pacers, and the Colts.
Yeah.
So I got them. It's like $90 a month, so it's a little steep, but it's the only thing you need to watch that stuff. So.
All right, and there are no disputes about, hey, we're going to negotiate using, the viewers. You want to take away channels? Nope. Nothing like that?
Nope. I've got Fox Sports, I've got Bally Sports or FanDuel, whatever it is now. Everything's on there.
Man, it is. I never thought in my lifetime it would be such a pain to get to what you want to watch TV. And we have all
both.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I called DirecTV, and in order to get that, it'd be like $350 a month. You have to have like a commercial package. So
well, hell, that's cheap. Then I feel like I'm cheap. I paid $220. I'm embarrassed to say that.
Right on. Well, thanks for taking my call, John. I appreciate it, man.
You got it, Derek. Thank you for the answer right there. Yeah, I paid $220. Seriously, I should have my ass whipped. I don't even know if I changed. I don't know how often I change the damn channel. Because TV to me is like video wallpaper, and I normally have music going on. I don't even have the volume up.
How many channels do you have access to?
Oh, God. There's got to be upwards of 200.
And how many do you actually use?
4. I think. Maybe 4. I rarely watch. If I want to see some highlights, I'll watch ESPN, or if there's obviously a game on. But I have zero interest in any of these debate shows. I'm not watching that. If Keanu Tom was on there working out or something, I'd probably watch that again. But yeah, I watch MeTV, which I can get with an antenna. I watch Get TV, which I can watch with an antenna.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And what you said your monthly bill was?
About $220.
So you're paying about $55 per channel?
Probably, yeah.
Per month?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, probably. I don't even get Skinemax. They don't even have Skinemax anymore. And I have all the movie channels too. I have all the HBOs, all the family of HBOs. I have HBO. I have Latin HBO. It's in Spanish. I have no idea. I'm gonna do a little Spanish. There's nothing worse than having the movie you want to watch that's in Spanish and then it's not on, and then you go, "Hey, ¿cómo se llama Die Hard? ¿Cómo se llama, Señor Spicoli?" But all that, I get all the movie channels. The Cinemaxes, what else is on there? I don't even know what they are. And even some like HD something, I don't know.
I'm still laughing over Como se llama Die Hard.
¿Cómo se llama, Señor Spicoli? Here's something else I learned. When your remote's kind of foobar, and I want to type, because I don't really know a lot of the channel numbers. I sound really old right here. And I'll type in 59. Has anybody ever done this with DirecTV? All right, I'll go 59, and I want Fox 59 to pop on. But sometimes my 9 sticks, and I go to $5.99, which is the Hustler Pay channel.
Is it really?
Yeah. So yeah, I'll go from hey, I want to watch this game. Hey, here's Hagen on Fox 59 and it doesn't show you the Hustler programming, but it does show you the title of what is on at that time.
Yes.
Which is
very
oftentimes worse than the programming. The lady will be sitting there. I go, "Hey, let's watch Hagen." Oh, wait a minute. No, that's the Hustler channel. My bad. And all because my 9 sticks. $5.99.
You should let Hagen know that when you watch him on Fox, you go right to the Hustler channel after.
What happens? The Hustler channel's got you got me at Hustler channel because my 9 sticks. JMV, you can cut HBO and just stream through Max, which is probably included in your phone plan. Whoa. I knew you guys would have all the answers for me. Does anybody else have the issue with 59 if your 9 sticks too? Look up DirecTV channel $5.99. I believe I'm accurate about that. I think it is. I don't think it's $5.59. I think it's $5.99. Does it say?
Well, the first thing that popped up is DirecTV, the hottest variety of adult channels.
There it is. I mean, it goes right. $5.99 on my DirecTV's The Hustler channel.
Apparently, you can find DirecTV's adult content on channels 575 through 599.
Whoa.
So they got a whole 14 channels.
Wow.
Of stuff for you.
It was just always uncomfortable when I'm sitting in there for, like with Blake, it doesn't, whatever. But with Laney, and I go, hey, we got this Hagen, 59, and then my 9 sticks, and it goes to whatever title's on the Hustler channel.
Does it pop up on your favorite channels now?
Probably
Quick
does.
access.
Probably does. Everybody thinking I'm a degenerate. That is pretty funny. Is that what they call first world problems? My 9 sticks, so I'm on the Hustler channel instead of Fox 59?
That's probably the definition of first world problems right there.
D in Broad Ripple says, JMV, stay with the cord. I've been with DirecTV since 05. It's been a pain with the stream. Don't cut the cord. You can get me TV on direct and pay $180. I have the sports package, no movies, just the basic channel. Yeah, $220. $220 is what I pay right now. The awesome Amy says, best part about streaming, I have YouTube TV. It's that I'm not tied to a box. Can you move I can move my TV wherever I want, take outside, watch on my phone, wherever. Yeah, I'm pretty much right there in the living room. Or we have, let's see, I have one in my room. Blake has one. And then Laney has a Roku stick in her room, and that's the only way I can watch. I watch Peacock channel in her room, and if I ever want to watch Wish TV channel 8 for whatever reason that would be, I go in there because I don't even know if Wish TV still exists unless I get it on the antenna. It's like, wait a minute, I wonder if this exists. Oh, I guess it does. There it is. So that's it. You like that $5.99 story, though, don't you? Seriously, the 9 sticks, and it takes me to the Hustler.
Now, why does the 9 stick?
That's a good question. I don't know. I need a new remote, I think. Quick break. We'll come back. Dave Matthews Band tickets I got for you coming up here. And tomorrow's show is going to be outstanding, but you got to be there with us. Be there with us. We'll have some drinks. We'll get you set for the Grizz and the Pacers as the Pacers restart after the All-Star break. And have a lot of fun. Tom's Watch Bar coming up tomorrow. Speedway Press Doug Bowles will join us on tomorrow's show. Eddie Gill, Alan Carpick. I mentioned Doug Bowles tomorrow. Mike Chappell with the elevated salary cap. And maybe some of the plans the Colts will have. Speaking of which, Ballard Steichen next Tuesday at the Combine. Now, they speak in the afternoon when I'm on. That does not necessarily mean they will be on with me, if you know what I mean. We shall see how that works out, but that is next Tuesday at the Combine. Mike and I discussed that, maybe some of the cuts that could happen, and just how elevated Chris Ballard would like to get the salary cap space if he dares to be different this offseason. That and Chris Kramer, the former Boilermaker guard, on the show tomorrow. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Pants is cool. Consider me Miles Davis.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, what is your favorite Dave Matthews Band song? It is a tradition at Ruoff Music Center, back-to-back, July the 11th and 12th this summer. Dave Matthews Band number 9 at 239-1070 will go on us. You get to check out Dave. I have seen Dave one time, and Jeremiah called yesterday to remind us of that moment where evidently he offered me weed, and I declined, and I was there with the late, great David Benner, and it was a fantastic time. Yeah, that was not the one where I popped the beach ball and I was all pissy with Hagan. That was Jimmy Buffett where I did that. Yeah, it was just I think I was just kind of a horse's ass in that moment. I don't know what I was doing. Number 9 at 239-1070. Dave Matthews Band tickets. We'll do it again tomorrow. Corbin writes this. Are you also paying for the streaming services Netflix, Peacock, Amazon Prime, and Paramount? I think so. I think, Corbin, that is on. I mentioned Lainey has a television in her room, and that's where I watch all the Peacock games. So I know it's Peacock, and then I watch, there's, I can't remember what the television service is that has all the really old school that I love, sitcoms and television shows that's in this. Not Tubi, I don't think. Maybe it is. But I normally watch that in there. So, yeah. I do. Corbin, I pay a ridiculous amount, brother. I need to have my skull examined. Stat. JMV, this is from Devin. This answers a question I had a little bit earlier. YouTube and CBS Paramount came to a temporary agreement to push the deadline back a month. So can't wait to hear about it again coming up in 30 days. Yes, exactly. That's what I was alluding to right there. Thank you very much. Hey, tomorrow, Tom's Watch Bar downtown. Doug Bowles is going to be with me. We will discuss and I believe have on some entertainment that will be taking the stage for the 2025 Carb Day out at IMS. Doug Bowles tomorrow, the entertainment tomorrow. Chris Kramer, the former Boilermaker guard, with some ideas on how Purdue should approach riding a 3-game losing streak. Their round 2 with rival IU and Bloomington coming up on Sunday. Chris Kramer on tomorrow's show. Mike Chappell on tomorrow's show. Hey, believe me, the last thing I want to discuss would be cap space. The last thing that gives me any sort of sports arousal is Colts cap space. However, I am intrigued to see if there is a philosophical change in the way that Chris Ballard approaches it. And you would think, holy hell, by year 9, maybe you should have some sort of a philosophical change with the results we've seen. But that is the reason why we will talk about it. They have elevated the salary cap. That news came out today. And the Colts actually have some opportunities, some reasonable opportunities, to make some maneuvers to provide themselves a little bit more. Let's just face it, you're going to have to utilize it. And let's not forget about how they're going to approach finding that competition for Anthony Richardson that Chris Ballard talked about. Ballard Steichen next Tuesday at the NFL Combine. That is going to be actually live during my show window. We'll see how that works out for me or anybody else. Coming up next week at the NFL Combine. James, great job out of you. If you're on hold, I'll get to you coming up tomorrow. Tom's Watch Bar, Doug Bowles, and hopefully all of you with me tomorrow. It is going to be an absolute blast. Alan Carpick, Gold and Black Illustrated, former NBA guard, Pacers TV, and radio analyst Eddie Gill. Podcast 1075thefan.com. You guys have been fantastic today. Tom's Watch Bar tomorrow at 3. I cannot wait to see you. 93.5, 1075 The Fan.